want Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, it's now 6:45. We'll be calling the Public Works and Economics meeting to order. My members are Mrs. Ramos, who contacted me, said she's running a few minutes late. My other member is council member to be determined. By next month, we'll have that member on board. And so then it's gonna be me and my alternate, Mr. Ricklick, and we're gonna hold this meeting tonight. And we have one item to discuss, and that's proposed ordinance number 1, 2023. It's in regards to basically a blank check for, or a blank statement for the service director to get all the things we need, including salt and stuff. I'll let him,
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's just a housekeeping thing so we can go out to bids. It's every year. And we've always bid out water pipe, there's the meters. This will take in paving, amongst other things. So it's a general, and it can wait 3 readings, that's fine.
pretty much everything we've done on the, already accounted for on the budget.
Yep.
We're just
Yep.
kind of giving you the clearance to go ahead
Yep.
and,
And it holds them for a year, and we really took advantage of it this year because of the pricing change so we benefited from it. So, that fluctuation, and the volatility of it should probably be there again this year, so. If we could, like I say again, it doesn't have to be, tonight or anything like that.
the second reading be okay? Or
Yeah, that's fine.
add it to the night? and
Yeah,
do it
yeah,
next
that's,
meeting?
that's perfect, that's perfect.
Okay, any questions from the committee? No?
Make a motion to add ordinance 1, 2023 to the agenda this evening.
Okay, and I'll second that, and we'll have a vote. Mr. Ricklick?
Yes.
I'll vote yes also. Anything else to come before committee? No, seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, at 6:47.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the Finance Committee meeting. Members of my committee are Amy May, Dean Holland, my alternate is Cheryl Ramos, and I am the chair. This evening, we have 3 items on the agenda here. Proposed ordinance 24-2022, an ordinance by City Council to amend the adjusted permanent appropriations for the year 2022, to declare an emergency, but this is really 2023, isn't it? We're trying to adjust to 2023, aren't we?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, then I have the wrong one then, sorry.
That's a typo on that.
What'd you say?
That might be a typo on my part.
Is it?
Could be. Pull it up. This crap.
Because you handed that out last meeting. Let me double check, make sure.
Yeah, but it wasn't in ordinance form.
But you'll have to put it in,
Was it this, Beth?
yeah, that's what it looked like. Did you give it a number, Marvin?
I don't think so.
Okay. There it is. Would it be proposed ordinance 3 then?
I think.
If we-
I was giving you 1 and 2, haven't I?
Yes.
Yep.
I thought when I printed out tonight, that was what you,
Mr. Chairman, that will not be coming to the ordinance. That's just alerting council to what the problems are.
okay, we don't need to move money or change the,
You will need to
Appropriation.
change the budget, yes.
okay.
But that is not going to be any kind of an ordinance, that spreadsheet.
Then how, and then I'm kind of, how can I discuss the finance committee to change the budget without an ordinance?
Well, we need to figure out where we're slashing.
Well, then,
I talked to a couple of the departments, you know, I think it's better that the departments talk to their ultimate manager and figure out what they can and can't live without. But I did talk to a couple people and got a couple of numbers, so.
okay, when this says verify what's on here, what the projected is, the deficit would be in the general and street.
Yep,
General would be $676,995.
yep,
Streets is $194,780 needs to be cut from the budget, is what
Yeah.
you're telling me,
yes,
okay? Safety forces, $463,345,000. Police training, $2,866,
yeah, that won't be a big deal.
okay? Scratch that one. How about the next one, which is the opioid? You said no problem reducing to the side also.
Which one?
That's one right below the police training, 228.
Oh, yeah, that's not a big deal.
Okay. And the next one down there would be police and fire pensions, 62,773.
Yes, actually, it went to 12,773, and that shouldn't be a big deal either.
Okay, so I can strike that one. You said the next one, which is the,
Local fiscal recovery should
No
not be a
problem.
big deal.
and then you said the CHIP program's no problem.
Yeah, because we had a lot of encumbrances carry over, so we don't need to
Okay.
reappropriate for this year.
Airport capital improvement, 11,975,
Yes, that will need to be talked about.
okay? And then the ambulance fund, 648.
Yes.
So,
Mr. Chairman,
just one second, Cheryl, just let me, tell me what I need to do.
Let me look here.
Yeah, Cheryl.
so just for clarification, these ending cash balances that you've given us, some of it says projected revenue includes a 5% income tax increase, although I emailed about that and you said you meant
A growth.
5% increase in the money coming in
Yes,
to the city.
yes.
So that's what the ending cash balances include.
Yes,
So these are dependent on us getting 5% more.
But we still have to cut the budget by those
Yes, we
numbers,
still
in those-
do.
In those line items.
Right.
So, Mayor, are you going to put something together?
I can talk to the department heads,
Okay.
but I'd like to know what numbers you use for your projections.
same as last year with a little bit of an increase in income tax.
Okay.
You do have a copy of this?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So then what I'm gonna do, I'll help schedule another meeting, first meeting in February to discuss this,
Sure,
since there's no way to discuss this right now.
right.
Okay, so we'll just table this until next meeting, and I'll have another meeting. What meeting?
February 13th.
February 13th, lucky 13th.
Well, we have, I will tell you, there's a Ohio and Erie Canal towpath, the Canal Coalition, and Envision are coming at 6 o'clock that evening to have a public meeting on the Envision's proposed route taking the towpath into Dover.
Okay,
So that'll be at 6 o'clock.
they can be done by 7?
I would say it could be done by 7, yeah.
We'll need more than that, don't you think?
What, for us, a half hour? At least it gives us a half hour to get it going. I
Get
just wanted to
started.
Start discussing it. So,
Okay,
we
I
give you a
will
meeting at
schedule.
7 PM. I will talk with you next week, Mayor.
Okay.
Where you feel you are with this, and then if we need
Yeah,
to
we'll get
change
together.
that meeting, I will change that meeting, okay?
Okay.
All right. So what I'm gonna put on here,
Chairman,
yes,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
recently we got a memo, and I don't recall exactly who it was from, and I glanced through my phone here momentarily and couldn't find it. But we were being told that the revenues were over $700,000 above what we had taken in at the same time last year. So when we get to the next meeting, I'd like to have an answer. Is the numbers that are being projected, does that include this additional 700+ thousand? Or was that a mistake in numbers that were sent to us?
but I think the 700,000 increase, Mayor, is what we took in income tax last year, was an increase, 780,000 increase?
708,000.
708,000 was our increase last year, which has an effect on this, but she's still saying we're gonna be over $1 million in the hole at the end of 2023, even with that. So
Thank you.
I think it's fair to allow the mayor and the auditor to discuss this and come back next meeting with a more understanding of where they're going to find to cut in their budget to make this work.
Thank you.
So Mayor, what I have in here, I'll call you, is next Thursday a good day to call you?
Yeah. Let me look, double check, I don't think I'm.
26, no, the 26th is this week. So it'll be February,
Next Thursday, the 2nd?
February 2nd. Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day, yeah. My birthday. Yeah,
I'll text you,
Remember by next-
see if you're available during the
yeah,
day.
anytime after 8:30.
Okay. That way, then I'll send out to all council members what we have to give everybody a chance to see what the mayor has for an update. Okay? Yes, Cheryl?
Beth has her hand
Yes,
up.
Beth?
Well, first of all, to Dean's point, any increase in income tax is divided among 6 or more funds.
Okay.
And then also, I can have a smaller ordinance that cleans up the little itty bitty ones that we just went a little too wild with
Okay.
for the next meeting.
Okay, that'll be fine.
Yeah.
We'll just have that ready for the February 13th meeting,
Yeah.
7 PM, okay? All right. So we'll just table this item until next meeting.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to have an impact statement on any reductions that might be proposed, so that we completely understand what will be impacted and how it will be impacted on citywide services.
Well, I totally agree with that, and I think that's what the mayor, I don't think it's fair to question the mayor tonight with this. That's why I am going to call him next week. If he has any updates, I will pass it on to all council members, but on the 2nd of February, they'll have more of a better understanding of where we're looking and what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
Okay? Sherry, you good with that?
Yeah, I was just gonna note that, we had that 7%, a little more than that increase in the income tax, but the budget went up over 11%.
Yes, and I will go, 2022, the budget was $35,191,813.88. This year's budget was $39,159,895.88, with expenditures and encumbrance of $28,918,725.45. So I feel let them do some house cleaning and look at their things to what they want to put the cut in, and maybe later in the year, if there's money there, the increases can be added. So, but I think we need to get the budget balanced now,
Oh, yeah.
so, okay? So I think it's fair to the mayor and the auditor to give them, some time to discuss it. So, Amy, you good with that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. McAvoy.
and I don't know, because could this have been done in the early process through this? That we're 3 weeks into January, and we don't have a balanced budget? Could it not have been budgeted or ran through the mill system before we pass a budget in December to go through the whole year? And here we are now, putting almost $1 million. I believe that should have been talked about prior to passing that budget versus rehashing it now.
What was presented to me, I asked, before I present to the whole council as approved, that the mayor was okay with the budget and the auditor was okay. They both answered that question, yes. The minutes will see that I asked.
No, I'm not calling anybody out, I'm not saying
Yeah.
you, I'm just
Yeah.
saying I think it's a
Should have
better
been done.
practice,
That's an administrative issue.
you know?
I mean,
No.
they balance their budget. We approve the budget. The administration takes care of their money. We say yes or no to the numbers of what they present to us.
In fact, I asked about this, Mr. Chairman, that we really had no numbers when we did the budget, because the figures weren't in yet so we didn't really know where we were.
We
And
had no final numbers of what was
Right.
balances in each line item. That's where the auditor is the expert, feeling that she's comfortable with the number she gave us. And you have to allow her to do that, Cheryl. As I am allowing the mayor and the auditor to discuss this before a meeting to the public. I think it's fair to both of them of what I'm doing as the chair of the finance committee. I expect them to have answers for us, but it's not fair to put them on the spot this evening.
Oh, no, I
Well,
never
that's all I'm
said that.
saying. So what would you like me to do other than what I'm doing, that I'm not doing?
I'm kind of agreeing with Mr. McAbeer that we should have talked about that in November, or October, when we decided this, and maybe just going back to doing temporaries, and
we-
then
But we didn't.
more
So
firm
we're
budget.
going to adjust it now after they both can look at their numbers, which the numbers they have are what's the balance carryovers and what they can foresee for the next year. that we could done temporaries, Cheryl, and got the same thing, not knowing what an increase would be, or something would have broke, or something we would have needed. They're numbers to try to get through the year is all they are. And they're comfortable, the auditor was comfortable with her numbers. She's not comfortable now, so we're gonna address them. Okay? Thank you. So, yes,
And ending balances, when I finally do know that, make all the difference
I know,
on
and
these
it does,
budgets too.
yeah. But we were trying to get a budget, so, and we did. We got it through, but we'll adjust. There's no reason to make this a big deal. We haven't spent money we don't have.
Not yet.
Have we?
Not yet that
Okay,
I know.
and we're not gonna be able to.
177,954.
You're not gonna allow it?
195.
So
Well, it
somebody.
doesn't mean it isn't happening, and then they expect me to pay for it anyway.
Well, that's on them. If they don't have an approved PO, that's on them.
203,31.
The process of a requisition and approved PO is the proper way for the state of Ohio, shows that High Vice goes to buying for the sale.
Help me preach to them.
Well,
General fund, 670.
Again, I'm counsel.
77.
77, okay,
Okay,
I got it.
with that being said, we'll talk about that on the February 2nd meeting. February 13th. I'm sorry about that. Okay. Okay, we have ordinance 2, 2023, which is an ordinance with the, is that the one with the J? That's the bordering.
That's safety, health,
Okay.
and services. That hasn't been brought up yet.
Oh, the what he sent me said, take care of both of those items you sent to me.
Is it the jail?
It was double assigned.
I think there's a resolution.
I know
in
he
the
did.
jail.
He sent me the one for the bids,
It
was
was
in my
double
pile.
assigned.
That's what you sent me. You sent me, and then you,
That was my fault, though.
Okay.
That wasn't his fault.
well, I was just taking what was sent, so I'm,
We're dumping on you today.
yes, I can tell that.
That wasn't your
Then
fault.
we have Resolution 1, 2023.
I listed the wrong committee on that one.
Okay.
So-
Well, again, we straightened it out.
Yeah,
I was wondering why I was seeing things. I said,
We
well,
did the
Where we
Dean's
at?
committee, I've signed it to Dean's.
yeah,
Yeah.
Dean's the ordinance 2, and you should be resolution
I have Resolution 1.
1.
Okay.
Okay. This is a resolution to authorize the city to enter in a contract with Tuscarawas County Commissioners and the Tuscarawas County Sheriff's Office for the housing of inmates in the Tuscarawas County Jail and payment of the housing costs to the Tuscarawas County Commissioners. To me, this is just a housekeeping that we do each year.
Yeah. Contract's no different than it's been in the past.
And it looks like the sum of $80 per day is what the contract stated.
Yeah,
Is that up from last year?
not to my knowledge.
No. Okay. Does any of the members of the committee have anything about the jail contract with the county commissioners? Mr. Holland?
No, thank you.
Any other council members? Administration?
Routine business.
How soon does this thing pass?
Well, like I said, there's no change in it, so it's just a continuation of what we've been doing. I don't see any reason to hold on to it. If council's prerogative to pass tonight, that'd be fine. If council wants to wait 3 readings, that'd be fine too.
Do we have the members to pass it? It's a housekeeping.
I'll make a motion to add resolution 1, 2023 to tonight's agenda and pass on first reading.
I have a motion?
I'm second.
I'll take a vote. Mrs. May?
Yes.
Mr. Holland?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes also. So we'll add Resolution 1, 2023 to the agenda this evening. I got it. And ask to suspend the rules and pass on first reading. Any other items? Mr. President? No. Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Meeting adjourns at 7:19.
This meeting of New Philadelphia City Council will now come to order. Would you please rise and remain standing for the pledge, for the invocation and pledge. Father, we just thank you for this day. I pray that we've used this day to bring glory to you. We just continue to bless our city, all our citizens, all our businesses. We continually pray for our policemen, firemen, and all those that are serving in the military. We just give you all the praise. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. I'd like to welcome all those that are watching on YouTube as well this evening. Roll call.
Mr. Holland.
Present electronically.
Mr. Lanzer.
Here?
Mrs. May.
Present.
Mr. Pace.
Here.
Mrs. Ramos.
Here.
Mr. Ricklick.
Present.
All right, thank you. Agenda, everybody's had a chance to review the agenda. Are there any additions, corrections? Yes, Mr. Alonso.
Yes, Mr. President, I asked to add proposed ordinance number 1, 2023 to tonight's agenda.
Do I have a second? Mr. Ricklick. Excuse me. Any discussion by administration? Council, roll call.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
All right. Are there any other additions? Mr. Ricklick.
Mr. President, I ask we add Resolution 1, 2023 to the agenda this evening.
Do I have a second? Mrs. May, thank you. Do I have any discussion by administration? Council, roll call.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
All right, any other additions to the agenda? Hearing none, I would accept a motion to accept the agenda with our additions. Mr. Ricklick, need a second? Mr. Alonso, thank you. In discussion by administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, minutes, everybody had a chance to review the minutes from our last council meeting. Any corrections? Hearing none, entertain a motion to approve. Mrs. May, need a second. Mrs. Ramos,
A
thank you.
second.
In discussion by council, administration, roll call.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
All right, Ms. Corbett, correspondence this evening.
To Councilman Lanzer from President Kemp dated January 11th, 2023. This is a forwarded letter from the Service Director regarding 2023 material bids. Mr. Kemp asked Mr. Lanzer to take this issue into the Public Works Committee for consideration. To council members from Auditor Gundy, this is dated January 12th, 2023. This is an email entitled 2022 Ending Budget, with that as the attachment. To City Council from Mayor Day dated January 17th, 2023. This is a forwarded email from Mary Vistas entitled Homeless Shelter Proposal off Beaver Avenue. To Council and Administration from Mayor Day dated January 18th, 2023. This is an email titled Compass Point Planning's Zoning Survey. To Councilman Ricklick from President Kemp dated January 19th, 2023. This is a forwarded email from Law Director Fate entitled Please Assign to the Finance Committee with Ordinance 1, 2023 and Resolution 1, 2023 as the attachments. To Councilman Holland from President Kemp dated January 20th, 2023. This is a forwarded email from Law Director Fate titled Please Assign to the Safety, Health, and Service Committee with Ordinance 2, 2023 as the attachment. And to Council and Administration from Mayor Day dated January 23rd, 2023, the Mayor's Report. And that concludes correspondence for this evening, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Ms. Corbett. We'll move on to our administrative reports. First up, Mayor Day.
Thank you, Mr. President, council members, fellow administrators, and guests. Two things I want to touch on from the report I sent to council earlier today. The city and the Ohio and Erie Canalway Coalition will be hosting a public forum on Monday, February 13th at 6 p.m. here in the council chamber to gather feedback on the planning study to determine the ideal route of the towpath trail through the city. The forum will be held here, and it'll be prior to council's February 13th regular meeting. Study is being conducted by Envision Group of Cleveland, the same company that developed the city's plan for bicycle and pedestrian trails. The proposed towpath trail route would link its southern terminus at Waterworth Park to the trail section in Dover. And you can see a flyer with more information. It's being posted on the city's social media sites. And I want to congratulate, because congratulations are in order, the council president and New Philadelphia businessman Don Kemp, who has been named to the Tuscarawas County Chamber of Commerce Hall of Fame. He will receive his well-deserved award at the Chamber's annual awards banquet. That'll be on Wednesday, February 1st at the Performing Arts Center. We also want to congratulate Buckeye Career Center for being named as the Chamber's Large Business of the Year, and Custom Needleprint of New Philadelphia as the Chamber's Small Business of the Year. That concludes my report, Mr. President. Any questions?
Any questions for the mayor?
Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words.
Congratulations.
Move on to Service Director, Mr. McAbeer.
Thank you, Mr. President, and congratulations to you. Real quick, we did a final walkthrough for Park Lane on Friday the 20th with representatives from Diversified and Tucson. They have some housekeeping items for sure. All the reseeding will have to be done again actually in the spring, because right now they just put the straw down there just basically to keep the earth there. There's a driveway that was high that we need to grind it down. It's letting some water get into one of them lower driveways. That was addressed, and that'll be done here within the next couple of months, that stuff. The seeding and that will be done in the spring, and then again, like I reported before, the permanent patch will be put up there on North Broadway. They'll grind out that concrete and blacktop that. All that stuff will be done in the spring, but that project is complete as far as all the water lines and everything. Also, I want to report on the sewer department. The new jetter that they were supposed to get last year is coming in on Thursday, so look for that. And again, it's right here local out of Gradall, and it's a new jetter and a vac, and we're looking forward to it. That's the end of my report.
I bet the people on Park Lane are happy that the
Yeah.
project's completed.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
Any questions for Mr. McAbeer? Thank you. Move on to Safety Director, Mr. Poppin is excused from the meeting tonight. Move on to Auditor, Mrs. Gundy.
No report this evening, thank you.
All right, move on to Treasurer, Mr. Gerber.
No report, sir.
All right. Move on, I know he's got a report. Law Director, Mr. Bates. I just know he has.
I'm just gonna give him a recap of
Oh, okay.
of the NFL this past weekend.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight, I wanted to address the ordinance 2, which is not before you, but I just want to give you a heads up on what to expect. That is to update our loitering ordinance. As you've known from me, those who have worked with me for a number of years, I know this has been a goal of the mayor's as well as mine, is to update a lot of our current ordinances and really bring them into the 21st century. I looked at our loitering ordinance, and it only dealt with, and of course, this is going to be key to maintaining downtown businesses, or bringing in downtown businesses. Our loitering ordinance only dealt with solicitation and drug abuse. So I thought it was time to update that, and that will be in Mr. Holland's committee. Another thing that I'm working on, and I wanted to have that ready for tonight, but I was looking at it Friday again before I sent it out. This is something I've worked on for months, and that is the rental registration. And one of the things that concerned me in that was the penalty section. The penalty section called for criminal penalties, and that's the way it's done in a lot of different communities, because we are borrowing from different communities to see what they've done in terms of rental registration. And it occurred to me that it's going to be difficult to enforce that against a limited liability company, for instance. So I'm looking to tweak that and maybe include not just criminal penalties as an option, but also civil penalties as well. So that's something that I want to do. And then Further down the line, I am working on vacant property registration, and this is something that Dover did recently. I'm looking at it and see if it's gonna fit our community. And given all the things that the administration, myself, have been involved in with regards to tearing down abandoned vacant properties that property owners have not maintained and that have become safe houses for drugs and crime, I think that this is something that would suit our city and help to, it'd be another step in eliminating that problem in our community and making this a place where we want to raise our children. So those are the three things that I'm working on. I'm also have an interview coming up that I just lined up today for the assistant prosecutor's job, which has not been filled in our office yet. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Any questions, Law Director?
President.
Yes, Mr. Holland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had contacted the council clerk, and she is setting time for our next meeting on the 13th to review ordinance 2, 2023.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Mrs. Ramos.
Don't- Well, I know ordinance 2/2023, the loitering, maybe we'll talk about this in the committee meeting, but when I was reading through this, would this address sleeping in or loitering in public places or on private property?
It
Also,
addresses public
Huh?
places. We don't have any authority to regulate
for private.
private property in that way, in that manner. Can't loiter in your own private property.
It's true, sorry. So public property, so the square downtown isn't all sidewalk. So that was my question. And, of course, you said help businesses downtown, and so this, like sleeping on the sidewalk or things like that, or impeding the businesses or customers getting to the business.
Well, I think that's a little narrower way of looking at the ordinance, but certainly if you're obstructing the walkway or the pathway in and out of a business, that can be lots of things, though. That can be, our current ordinance deals with drug solicitation, but you could have somebody that's a danger to themselves because they're on drugs and maybe trying to act in a manner that could obstruct going in and out of that business, where they're a danger to themselves, maybe, you know, where they could set themselves on fire or something along those lines. I mean, I'm speculating here, but, and again, I think this is probably, I don't want to steal Councilman Holland's thunder, because this is really his purview. I just want to give you kind of a preview of it. And I think that's probably a better discussion left for that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's much broader than that, I think.
Okay.
Then it's not targeting or narrowed towards any certain person or any certain specific kind of behavior. And it's not unlike what almost all the cities in Ohio have,
Okay.
right?
All right, any other questions for the Law Director? All right, thanks, Marvin. Move on to our Board Commission reports. Planning Commission, Mayor Day.
The Planning Commission will be meeting the second Tuesday of February here in Council Chambers at 1 o'clock, and we're still developing the agenda.
All right. Board of Zoning Appeals, Mr. McAmeer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Board of Zoning and Appeals will meet February 14th at 5 PM here in council chambers. At this time, there's no variance request to be heard, but I'll give an update at the meeting on the 13th.
All right, thank you. Airport Commission, Mr. Alonso.
Thank you, Mr. President. Airport Commission will be meeting the second Tuesday, February 14th at 6 PM here in council chambers.
All right, thank you. Park Board, Mr. Pace.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Park Board met Wednesday, January 18th, and we got a couple updates on the baseball fields. For the high school Field 1 project, the scoreboard was ordered. The scoreboard that's currently out there is in pretty bad shape, so we're looking for that to be installed in May. The Field 2 dugouts should have the roof installed and the dugout will be wrapped hopefully in the next few weeks, if the weather permits. And then last, we have the Trout Day. We're still waiting on the ODNR to give us the date for the 800 trout to be put in the park pond, and we can catch them and keep them. So, but that's all I have tonight.
What is that open to, like kids or adults?
Well, we're gonna have a trout derby day. It'll be that Saturday. They're put them in on Friday. We'll have a trout derby day on that Saturday morning. It'll be open for kids, and then over the next week, my guess, the trout will be fished out. So, working on that now to make it special for the kids with giveaways and all that kind of stuff.
That
So,
sounds like a fun
it'll be
day.
Yep.
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, question from Mr. Pace. Move on to Health Board, Mr. Holland.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Health Board will be meeting on February the 8th at noon in the council chambers,
All right,
and I have no further report.
all right, thank you. All right, move on to our council committee reports. Finance, Mr. Ricklick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance Committee met this evening at 7 PM. We had one item on the agenda this evening. Resolution 1, 2023, dealing with the jail contract. It was discussed a little bit and was recommended to add it to the agenda this evening, pass an emergency tonight. And we had a discussion about the budget, and we'll have a meeting in the future in February to discuss the budget of 2023. That's the end of my report. And meeting adjourned at 7:19 PM.
In spite of me giving you a couple of different things, right?
Yeah, you filled me in.
Okay. All right, any questions for Mr. Ricklick? All right, move on to Public Works and Economic Development, Mr. Lonzer.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Public Works and Economic Development, at 6:45. We had one item on the docket. It was proposed ordinance 1, 2023. It is voted unanimously to put the proposed one on the agenda tonight, and the service director is asking if we could pass it on the first reading tonight.
All right. Any question for Mr. Lonzer? Safety, Health, and Service, Mr. Holland.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Safety, Health, and Service Committee will be meeting on February the 13th, and a time will be announced.
All right, thank you. All right, move on to zoning and annexation, Mrs. Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report.
All right. We'll move on to park or cemetery, Mr. Pace.
Thank you, Mr. President. We met on January 12th here in council chambers, and we didn't have a quorum, but the service director had updated us that the two mismatched trees at the Schönbrunn Meadows Cemetery have been removed and put to the back of the cemetery with 10 additional trees planted. So they're making some headway down there with adding trees to the new cemetery. So and that's all I have this evening.
Any question from Mr. Cemetery Committee? Contact and Special, Mrs. May.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report this evening.
All right. Move on now. It's open for visitors' comments. The floor is now open for visitors' comments. Anyone wishing to address council should rise, state their name.
Point of order.
Yes.
I think you missed Mr. Lonzer's.
No, I was just stating that Amy is the salary cap.
Yeah.
Am I
Oh,
doing
that's
both
right.
for now, or? I can
I was
do-
looking off
I-
of last year.
I can do that.
No. Salary, Mrs. May.
Okay.
Multitasking.
It's a rough night, Don. For both of us.
I didn't update my agenda, see? Mrs. May, Salary Committee.
Thank you. No report this
All
evening.
right. Thank you for that point of order.
Probably want to put me in charge of salary committee next time.
No, probably not. All right, the floor is now open for visitors' comments. Anyone wishing to address council should rise and address their comments to the chair. You will be given 5 minutes. Anyone wishing to speak to council this evening?
Is the mic,
You gotta come over to the podium, would you please?
is it on?
I didn't turn.
It doesn't amplify, it just.
When is it turned on?
Just records.
It just
It
records,
does have an
so.
off switch.
Hey,
Don't
John,
need
is
to
it
be
on
over
back
there.
here? Is that microphone on?
Should be a red light on. I see a red light. You turn it on then.
There's a button right there on the side.
It doesn't look like a wireless microphone.
No, we've got it hardwired down.
Shouldn't be a light on, yeah. Just be on.
We'll just assume it's on.
Okay. Just speak loudly. It looks like, that's it, right? That's the front.
Yeah.
So it should be on, maybe it's just.
You can probably tell volume wise. Go ahead and speak, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Mary Pistos, and I believe my letter was mentioned that it was sent. I have a lot of real concerns on this homeless shelter being built where the proposed site is. I don't know where that stands with the council, but I pretty much said everything I needed to say in that letter. However, I feel that this shelter is going to be a problem in that neighborhood. Yeah, I do live across the street from it. There's a creek, and it's right there across from my house. When I bought this house, and we bought this house in 1996, it was a quiet dead-end street. And that will no longer be a quiet dead-end street if they put that shelter across there. I think it's way too close to the elementary school. And quite personally, I feel that the shelter should not be put in anybody's neighborhoods. I don't care where it's at in the village. I do agree there should be a shelter somewhere, but I don't feel it belongs in a residential neighborhood. I just would like to know where this is standing at this point. I'm sorry I found out about it 2 weeks ago. I do not buy the Times Reporter. I don't listen to WJR, unfortunately. So I was not aware this was even happening until 2 weeks ago.
It's been assigned to committee. We're waiting for a new councilman to be appointed here the first part of February. So there will probably be a meeting of the zoning and annexation committee in late February. We will notify everybody in that area so everybody can attend that meeting. Our goal would be to notify everybody so everybody can come to that meeting.
Well, I don't know how you notified, but there was a petition passed that
Yeah, we
never
see-
hit our house.
There is a sign-up sheet. If you give me your email address, I'll send you a meeting notice.
That would be great.
You know, we both feel the same way. The homeless shelter is doing good work. It's something the community needs, but it should not be placed in the middle of a residential area. And that close to a school, et cetera, et cetera. I know the people in there, they're not perfect. Everybody deserves a second chance. It's not a big deal, but to jam it in the middle of a neighborhood, you know, it's affecting a lot of residents that live there. There will be loitering, and there will be things happen. You know, we go past it, there's bicycles there, there's cars over there, they have cars, some of them do. You know, they say they want it close to downtown so they can use the facility downtown. Well, if you read some of their articles, that's the probation officers, the courthouse, et cetera. I mean, you know, we know they're not angels. They do have strict rules. You know, I've read their rules and everything. They lock them down at 10 o'clock, but during the day, you're gonna have issues.
Yeah.
What we've seen too, in like our neighborhood, they put the walking trail in on Kreider. And, you know, when it first opened up, a lot of people used that trail. Well, we're both retired now, but while we were working, we saw people go back there meeting people at 5 a.m. in the morning, back in that little gravel parking lot back there. Now, what do you suppose is going on? They're not walking the trail, you know?
Yeah.
They're using it as a meeting site for exchanges of sorts. But, that's gonna bring that kind of activity too, you know, so, I don't know what the answer is. Like that hotel down by Rural King, where it was OXO or whatever, and it's always been a disaster, that would be a phenomenal place, because there's no residents there. You know, it shouldn't affect the citizens, you know. And that's just how we feel about it. I'm not against it. I think they're doing good work, and it's needed.
Yeah.
That's a crisis.
Yeah.
And, just finding a place to put it is gonna be an issue.
Yeah.
For people to agree.
Yeah, we were aware of that, yes. Thank you for your comments,
Mr.
but
President?
yes, Mr. Pace.
A couple of the residents in that general area had passed around the petition. I have it here if you'd like to sign it. I don't know if you'll be staying for the whole meeting, but I can,
We've talked to our neighbors, and they all feel the same way.
Actually, nobody on our street was even presented that petition,
okay.
and that's Nightler Street.
I think it mostly went up Ray Avenue.
It went down prior to.
You know, there's, the traffic on Beaver is another issue. You're gonna have a lot of traffic trying to go out right where that church is, and that's just gonna create another.
Yeah.
So that's kind of busy right there.
Yeah. And when we have our committee meeting, that's when all these comments really become
Absolutely.
to fruition. So we will try to inform everybody as best as we can about that meeting, so
Yeah, it makes sense.
residents can be there.
Thanks for listening.
Hey, thank you for your comments. Yes, ma'am, you can come to the podium, please.
Well, I'm going to, the issue that they have too. I live on Kreider Avenue, and I had spoke my mind at the meeting they had at the Catholic Church the other night, or week. There's quite a few of us on Kreider that are widows. And we don't want, I mean, it's all, I don't want to sound heartless, but with not, we don't want to have them around, because they say there's so much room for them. Then where does the overflow go? Do they like it down by the river where they camp out? I don't want them camp, I don't want to come home at night and find them camped out behind my house on the creek, because I live right across, directly across from where they want to put it. I want to feel safe. And I think, like they said, there's plenty of other places they can put them. And I just don't think in my neighborhood is a place for it to be. When at the meeting, Mr. Mathias had said about putting a fence up. I tried to have a fence put up for my German Shepherds, and I was shot down because they said I would flood, if there was a flood, it would be against whatever. So why did they, to put a fence up? But I just don't, I think you should think twice before you do this,
Okay.
because just like you said about the walking path, that's right up the street for me. Do you know how many times the police have been up there because they're dealing out of that I said that when they put it in, that it was gonna be trouble. So, but that's my opinion on
Okay.
the homeless shelter.
What is your name and address?
Lynn Servini, 516 Kreider, Northeast Philly.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Mr. Veet?
I just want to thank you folks for coming. I want to make clear that our current zoning does not permit that type of shelter to be built in a residential neighborhood. That is illegal currently in the city of New Philadelphia. Council has been asked to address that and to amend or to spot zone that area, and that is the purview of council, that is exclusive purview of council. They certainly have the authority to do that. But part of doing that is listening to all sides, and in particular the residents of that area. So this is a democracy, and I thank you for coming and exercising your right to speak. And certainly, the clerk will inform you when there's a meeting on that. And council, I know, will take that into consideration when they decide whether or not to amend the residential zoning in that area to permit that type of facility.
One issue too, that does flood. That is a floodplain.
Yeah.
That is actually in a floodplain. I believe it's in the
It runs up to the
50-year.
alley.
It's a high-risk flood zone, yes.
So
And I can tell you, in 2004, it was extreme.
it was all underwater, all the way up to those houses.
Yeah.
We had pictures, but we couldn't bring them because you can't tell what it is. It was painted through
It
the
had
trees.
trees in that.
So you don't know what it is. It's like, I'm not gonna bring a picture that's water, you know what I mean? But that does flood.
Yep.
And it floods severely.
Yep. Any other comments? Yes, Ms. Pastor.
Good evening, I'm Reverend Joe Svencara, address 1144 South Broadway Street, New Philadelphia. Distinguished members of council, I stand before you tonight as somebody who cares very deeply about people. The people of my church, the staff and guests at Friends of the Homeless, the people of New Philadelphia and Dover, because my church has members from both cities, so don't judge us too harshly on that. And we also try to attempt to understand everybody on either side of the debate. And the issue of the new shelter project has brought about opinions for and against it. In every one of our prospective properties, we have sought to engage and understand the concerns of neighbors and concerned citizens at large. And most recently, on January 4th, we held a community meeting by which to elicit concerns and address questions of those around potential Beaver Avenue property. Issues of flooding, traffic conditions, property values, public safety, and others were brought up for our consideration. And we appreciate all of those. We honestly, truly appreciate all of those who are willing to stand and give their opinions. Because truly, we are, in fact, wanting to be good neighbors. And we are wanting to consider everybody and what they value in a civil and constructive manner. Our committee is still studying those facts and continuing to consider what is in the best interest of the project and those whom we serve. Everything that was brought up in that meeting, we do hold in consideration. Every single fact is brought back to our committee in order to understand it. Because there are some things that we did not know about the property that are making us look again and making us consider if this is in fact the right choice. Our committee is still studying and still wanting to do good by everybody, but we know we're never going to make everybody truly happy. And the art of compromise is not one party getting 100% of what it wants. But I believe in the ancient Christian understanding of faith-seeking understanding. The idea that what we believe is right should never be our sole position, but should always be a starting point to investigate and validate in the light of reason and in the experiences of other people. We're not an organization that wants to burden the city and its resources with our mission. We want to be partners and allies in a common issue that we all face, and to truly make a community where all people feel and are welcome. We want people to be freed from the evils of substance abuse and addiction, of alcoholism, of domestic abuse, and other traumas which keep others from trusting in people wanting to help. It's a monumental and difficult task, one in which the staff at Friends of the Homeless deserve all the credit. And as the president who represents them, I desire them to have that at all costs. But such issues are not the sole property of Friends of the Homeless, nor are they the sole property of the city or the county, but a common problem that we can come together to address. All it requires is understanding of what we can do to help. But unfortunately, that understanding has been lacking due to breakdowns in communication between our two groups. Emotions can run high, personal histories can play a factor, and it's easy to get sucked into the mentality of, if one side is right, the other is wrong. The zoning investigation is such an opportunity to understand the position of the city and to achieve legal and authoritative understanding as to our place within the city. I applaud the work of the council and of the work of Chairman Ramos in the seriousness of study that she is giving to our issue. She explained to me that the zoning codes of the city are supposed to be easy in giving those concise and easy to understand stipulations as to our place. Even though the document does average about 1,200 pages in length, it does spell out the zoning allowances and restrictions for building in New Philadelphia. That's not in doubt, and that's not what we are challenging. But the problem is the reading and the interpretation of those codes by others in city management, which have cast doubt on our place and what we believe we are and what we occupy. We are a registered 501c3 nonprofit business who work alongside social service agencies of the city government. But it has been insinuated on occasions that we are not a business, not a social service agency, and not a residence. So what are we? Imagine having an 18-year-old business that operated peacefully and operated unencumbered, only to then be told that we're technically not that. Imagine the sense of uncertainty, confusion, and frustration that such a situation creates. And that's the position that we have been placed in. So I call upon the members of the executive leadership, members of council, and even citizens with the knowledge of such things to help us understand our place within this community. Perhaps the upcoming redevelopment of the city code would be an opportunity to seek or perhaps create a better defined classification of a homeless shelter to help us better ingratiate with the mission and vision that you all have for this city, and to help us help our dedicated and loving staff to know that everything they do is truly appreciated and not in vain. Let our common and living faith have understanding, not just for our sake, but for everyone who will come after us. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Run you over.
Oh, you're fine.
I'm a good one, it's cause trouble.
On back
Here?
further, Carl.
Keep going.
All right, I'm Carl Russo, 324 West High Avenue, New Philadelphia. I am very for the homeless shelter. I do have my reservations about the spot. A floodplain would definitely not be advisable. But the issue of where it's located isn't so much my concern. A couple of the people had mentioned about tent city and drug issues and this and that, and others maybe even being attracted to the homeless shelter so they could do their drugs. I don't see it. What I'm looking at is I've seen two essentially, out of the homeless, let me close this up. What I see out of the homeless is two groups of general people. The one group that would be legitimate going into the homeless shelter are ones who are wanting help, they've fallen on hard times, and they're serious about their recovery. My daughter is over at Legacy Church tonight listening to a testimony of one such gal who's climbed out of it, and she's working and doing. And our church Legacy is active in recovery. However, I can look out my window, or my daughter mostly does because I'm blind, but we see drug activity right outside the alley right next to my house. We see drug activity all over the place. And these empty skulls, as I refer to them as, don't give a hoot about recovery. They don't give a hoot about anything. In fact, just one of our friends from Legacy Church, in fact, two of them, one, they were in a house that was set fire because of some drug activity. One died, and the other one is still looking for an apartment. And what do you do with that? You know, these ones that don't want to help, they're not attracted to a homeless shelter. They're not attracted to anything but a place where they can duck into some place, somewhere, some alley, behind my garage or behind the next door neighbor or whatever, do their deal, get high, float down the street, and he's a danger to everybody else around. Those are the ones we have a problem with. The homeless, the ones that want to get help, I encourage them, I applaud them. And I know my daughter and I know Tommy and them over at Legacy Church, who's our pastor, we're praying for them and we're active in trying to help them. But these ones that don't want help, they're the danger. They're the problems. And I don't know what you can do about it. I'm sure our law director is quite tired of seeing the reports coming across his desk. And I'm sure the police department's tired of seeing all the nonsense from them too. They're the real problem, not so much the ones that are wanting them. And besides, Jesus came to earth to give us reconciliation to the Father. And that reconciliation, God is a God of second chances, third, fourth, even fifth chances, or more. His grace is sufficient for in our weaknesses, He is strong. As it says in 2 Corinthians 12. Thank you much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Russo. All right, we'll move on to council comments. Any council members? Any comments this evening? All right, move on to our legislative agenda. Mrs. Courtwright, Ms. Courtwright.
Ordinance number 1, 2023, and ordinance by the council of the city of New Philadelphia directing the service director to advertise for bids and to enter into contracts with the lowest and best bidder for the city's requirements of various materials and supplies for 2023 and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there any action is there any action to be taken by council on this legislation tonight? Mr. Alonso.
Yes, Mr. President, I ask that the rules be suspended on ordinance 1, 2023.
Do I have a second? Mr. Ricklick. All right, any discussion by administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
All right, rules have been suspended. Now to entertain a motion to pass. Mr. Lonzo.
Yes, Mr. President, I ask that we pass ordinance 1, 2023.
Do I have a second? Mr. Ricklick, thank you. In discussion by community, administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
All right, ordinance 1, 2023 has passed.
Resolution number 1, 2023, a resolution to authorize the City of New Philadelphia to enter into a contract with the Tuscarawas County Commissioners and the Tuscarawas County Sheriff's Office for the housing of inmates in the Tuscarawas County Jail and payment of housing costs to the Tuscarawas County Commissioners and declaring an emergency. First reading.
All right, is there any action to be taken by council on this legislation tonight? Mr. Ricklick.
Mr. President, I ask we suspend the rules for Resolution 1, 2023.
All right, Mr. May, Mrs. May for a second. In discussion by administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
All right, rules have been suspended. Mr. Ricklick.
Mr. President, I ask that we pass Resolution 1, 2023.
Is there a second? Mrs. May, thank you. In discussion by community, administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Ricklick.
Yes.
Mrs. May.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Lonzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
All right, resolution 1, 2023 has passed.
That concludes legislation for this evening,
All right,
Mr.
thank
President.
you, Ms. Courtwright. Any unfinished old business for this evening? Any new business brought before council this evening? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, I would move that we adjourn this meeting of the New Philadelphia City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Holland.
He's not here.
Adjourn at 8:13.
He's not here.